they really should have been. These people should have been in church, right? But instead, they were at Washington D.C. chanting things and dancing and really celebrating what's going on in Israel, which is just super disturbing. Let's take a listen to that. Here we go.
Palestinian forces took over police barracks and military checkpoints, while prisons were stormed to free those being held. Others seized Zionist military equipment, killed dozens of soldiers, and took many soldiers hostage in the hopes of bargaining for the further freedom over 5,200 Palestinian political prisoners.
So they're cheering
Hamas
about Israeli soldiers being captured and slaughtered. Right here in America, another pro-Hamas speaker was quoted, and he was quoting the Chinese communist dictator. You can't make this stuff up. Mao Zedong, calling him the Great Revolutionary. So Zedong was one of the founding members of the CCP, and he's historically known for helping cause the death of tens of millions of people. Okay, Mao Zedong was a Chinese communist dictator, and he was quoted, and he was called a great revolutionary at this pro-Hamas gathering outside of the White House yesterday. So the Israeli prime minister, you're probably like, Kat, take me back a bit. I don't know exactly what's going on. So the prime minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, declared war on Saturday. Okay, so after Hamas terrorists invaded this country, they ruthlessly executed and kidnapped innocent civilians. I'm going to get to a couple of stories, and I really don't want to, but I got to tell you about it, okay? Because I know that you're not going to hear it anywhere else. And the beauty of social media is that you can get this information on Twitter. You can see what's going on Twitter. A lot of it is censored on things like YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. I've seen a lot of things come out about the terrorist attacks, but this is ruthless, and they're going after women, children, the elderly in these unprovoked terrorist attacks. So Benjamin Netanyahu, he's the prime minister of Israel, and he said, since this morning, the state of Israel has been at war. Our first objective is to clear out hostile forces that infiltrated our territory and restore security and quiet to the communities that have been attacked. The second objective at the same time is to exact an immense price on the enemy within the Gaza Strip as well. So, yeah, he's seeking to destroy the enemy. So this is what he says Saturday, right after declaring war. He goes, the third objective is to reinforce other fronts so nobody should mistakenly join this war. We are at war in war. One needs to be level-headed. I call on the citizens of Israel to unite in order to achieve our highest goal, victory in the war. So they're going to try to make sure nobody else joins in, and it's just between Hamas and Israel, because the last thing Israel would need is for somebody. I don't know who would join Hamas. This is just like it's so odd. I don't even really understand the Middle East so well. I think that Hamas, it's like this nationalist, they're actual extremists that have broken away from Palestine. Like Palestine itself is almost like a breaking away of Israel, and even within Palestine, there is breaking off, and this is what Hamas, it's a terrorist organization. So they broke off from Palestine. So they're Palestinians, but they've broken off and they call themselves Hamas. So it's a terrorist organization. It's very odd, these Islamic terrorists, and how they've completely like tried to create something separate of the rest of the world. But Hamas executed children. I gotta get to these stories. I'm gonna take a quick break. This is a really heavy lift and stuff, guys. It's big. Okay, this is a huge thing, especially if you're a Christian. We know that Israel is God's country. I don't think I have to tell you that. Now, through the break here, I'm gonna be on the live stream. I'm gonna be reading from Joel chapter 1, verse 6. Zechariah chapter 2, verses 5 through 7, Genesis chapter 35, verses 10 through 15. all of these are biblical examples that show you that God uniquely and prophetically has repeated in the Bible. Israel is the land in which God, it refers to Israel as his. So there is no other land on earth. Uh, he raises Israel to be a light to the Gentiles. So Israel is very important. And as a Christian and as an American, I think that it's important that we stand with them. It's sad that it had to come to this, and I'm going to be honest with you, didn't have to come to this. Had not Joe Biden given $6 billion to Iran, which definitely went to Palestine, most likely, uh, I don't think we'd be in this mess. I don't think we'd be in this mess if Donald Trump was our president. All right, we're going to be back on the other side. This is the Morning Buzz. So much to get to. We are going to be visiting with William J. Kelly out of Chicago. We've got a couple of things I've got to talk about there. Specifically, there's been a lawsuit filed. I want to talk about this with him over the migrant issue. Two members of a Chicago community have filed a lawsuit against the city in connection with the migrant crisis. The lawsuit alleges inhumane conditions for the housing of these illegal immigrants in shelters and in police stations. So he's got a lawsuit on his hands. Brandon Johnson, that's next. Hey, good morning. Pray for Israel. Pray for Israel. Thanks so much for tuning in. I am going to be getting to a few of these brutal attacks. Can you guys hear me okay? Just want to make sure. Throw it into the comments section if you can hear me. We've got to get to a few of these brutal attacks. I know it's heavy lifting and it's tough, but it's important that you know and that you can see what's going on. The Biden administration, um, and how we've gotten ourselves into this mess. So the United States, what's the United States response? That's something that we all need to understand. As what is the U.S. going to do? At first, I was very upset because I saw this tweet and then they quickly deleted it, which I found interesting. The U.S. Office of Palestinian Affairs tweeted out that Israel shouldn't defend itself. They were like, don't defend yourself, just violence isn't the answer. So that was disturbing. So when people say that Joe Biden is standing with Israel and that he's doing a good thing by making these statements and formally coming out and offering military aid, this is posturing. I don't think he actually stands with Israel. Otherwise, he wouldn't have given. Look at it's not so much what he says, but it's more so what he does. And then you're going to be like, okay, Kat, well, the United States military, they started moving all of these this big ship. This is I think it's the largest ship. It's an aircraft carrier. And they started moving the ship and it's got all these airplanes on it. I think that this is posturing. I don't think that they're actually going to do anything. Um, toward the eastern section of the Mediterranean Sea on Sunday to show support for Israel, as well as support for the evacuation of U.S. citizens if needed. So that's what I think the ship is for. I don't think it's actually for, um, you know, going on the offensive. It's more for just, and I'm not saying that we should go on the offensive, but at the same time, we really do need to actually stand with Israel. We shouldn't have given the $6 billion to Iran. Um, And I've got Tony Blinken here, and I'm going to play that here in just a second. But if you're watching, go ahead and smash the like button. I've got Tony Blinken, who is lying on CNN, and he's sitting there trying to downplay the $6 billion that I'm talking about. And it's really quite sad how, there's people out there who have said that Joe Biden is standing with Israel, and it's such a great thing that he's standing with Israel. He's not. And here's why I say that. It's because your actions speak louder than your words. Um, and his actions have led up to this. Everything has led up to this. Um, there have been several Americans killed and missing in Israel. Um, and this is not good. Um, so Israel, uh, they lied about Afghanistan and then they gave $6 billion to Iran. And that's the truth. So we're going to be chatting a little bit about that. here on the other side. Plus, there's a school in Los Angeles for National Coming Out Day. They're not going to be learning about Christopher Columbus and how he sailed the ocean blue in, um, what was it, 1442? Yeah, so we're gonna be getting to Los Angeles, and I'm just looking at, William J. Kelly. He's messaging me, and, he's gonna be on this morning, talking about Chicago. There's specifically a couple of lawsuits that Brandon Johnson will be facing here as the mayor of Chicago because of the migrant crisis. So just 2 community members, that's all it takes, 2 community members to go after the city for what they're doing to these migrants, which really is a humanitarian crisis. They're sleeping in police stations, they're sleeping in O'Hare Airport, Airport. It's truly tragic. So we're going to be talking with William J. Kelly about that. Then the Los Angeles story where these kids are going to be forced to literally learn about National Coming Out Day. Um, for a week. An entire week, they're gonna be learning about National Coming Out Day. So if you're watching, go ahead and smash that like button. We're gonna be talking with William J. Kelly here in just a couple of minutes. Now, one thing that we need to know about Hamas as well is the people who are involved in the U.S. House, specifically AOC, Cory Bush, Ilhan Omar, that the squad. Um, so we'll talk about the squad here and what they had to say. They're pretty much comparing the Hamas deaths, the terrorists who are dying, not a whole lot of them because it was a surprise attack. But the terrorist group, they're equating those deaths to the innocent Israeli deaths. The squad members are. So, yeah. Don't turn it into a religious station, cat. 309-451-9299. I've got these texters in the text line. Look, pal, I mean, you got all upset because I mentioned a couple of Bible verses that literally it's biblical prophecy. Okay, that Israel will fall. And that is when the rapture of the church will happen. I'm sorry. I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm sorry that you don't believe it, but it is the truth. And you got all into tizzy because I mentioned the Bible. Gasp! Don't turn it into a religious station. Well, I'm sorry, but Israel is God's country. I mean, that's just true. Israel is a land about which God says uniquely and prophetically and repeatedly in the Bible, "This is mine." That's what God says, and I'm sorry if you don't like that, but that's the truth. God has said that Israel is his country. And if you don't believe me, I mean, Joel chapter 1, verse 6, Zechariah chapter 2, verses 5 through 7. I bring my receipts. Genesis chapter 35, verse 10 through 15. Okay, God refers to Israel as his, and he does not do this with any other land on earth. He raises Israel to be a light to the Gentiles, and that's important. And just because you're bothered by it, then doesn't mean that I'm not going to tell the truth. Okay. It's disgraceful that this tweet went out. We're going to get to this. The U.S. Office of Palestinian Affairs. A lot of people are saying, "Oh yeah, Joe Biden stands with Israel. What a great president." No, he's not actually, because his office here, the Palestinian Affairs Office, they actually sent out a tweet encouraging Israel to not defend itself, and then later deleted it. So these people are very telling. You just got to keep your eyes open. the $6 billion to Iran that contributed to this. Make no mistake, this comes after Hamas launched a surprise attack on Israel overnight. This was during a religious holiday. Um, I think it was the last festival, the Feast of Tabernacles, or something like that. It was during a holiday, during a Shabbat, which is just disgusting in and of itself. But this comes as Hamas launched a surprise attack on Israel overnight, killing and wounding hundreds, with reports of hostages being taken, Americans being taken hostage by Hamas terrorists. More than 5,000 rockets were launched at Israel. Israel has mobilized their defense forces. So it's disgraceful. And every single person involved in drafting and approving this one tweet that came from the U.S. Office of Palestinian Affairs should be immediately expelled from the U.S. government. People need to be fired because of this. And I don't know who approved the tweet, but whoever did, the original tweet, it said, "We unequivocally condemn the attack of the Hamas terrorist and the loss of life that has incurred. We urge all sides to refrain from violence and retaliatory attacks." Uh, wow! So they are urging Israel to not defend themselves in this tweet that they released. Terror and violence solve nothing. That's what the office sent out via tweet. We should not compare terrorists targeting Israel, Israeli civilians, and our greatest ally in that region. Okay, that's what Israel is. We should not be comparing terrorist deaths to Israeli deaths. They're not even on the same playing field. Okay, whomever wrote this tweet must be fired, and the Biden administration must publicly denounce this shameful tweet. And until he does, I'm gonna take this as a, hey. Our first reaction to this was, let's tell Israel not to defend themselves after a surprise attack. I mean, gosh, some of the worst wars, some of the worst people, they've never even done this. I mean, they will let you know. They'll come out and they'll say, "Hey, get your women and children out of this building. We're going to bomb this building." Like, they'll let you know, "Hey, this building's gonna. We're going after this building. We're going after this building." But these people just did this surprise attack, and they're going after women and children. The U.S. Office of Palestinian Affairs issued additional posts, and we're going to get to those. But whoever put out that initial post, I think they need to be fired. They really need to be fired. We are going to be getting to the school district here in Los Angeles. I can't believe it, but I can believe it. And one way to tell if a social movement is degenerate is if it sees is to see if it targets children. If a social movement targets children, that's how you know it's degenerate. And this Los Angeles school district, they aren't able to read. None of the kids are able to read. But guess what they're going to be doing all this week? All this week. Not today, because they're off today for what they call Indigenous People Day. I call it Christopher Columbus Day. But Los Angeles school district, they are going to be forcing the kids to have a week-long celebration of National Coming Out Day. I don't know when that day actually is, but this elementary schools, they want the kids as young as 5 to participate in a celebration. It's a week long, and there's curriculum surrounding it and activities, school activities surrounding it. And this is happening in Los Angeles. Check your schools, check your kids' homework, check their backpacks. Right now, I do want to get to William J. Kelly. He's an Emmy Award-winning Chicago reporter. He's joining me here on the line Monday morning. We like to catch up. So what was the violence like in Chicago, William J. Kelly, this weekend?
Wow. Well, God bless you, Kevin. Thank you for having me. Yeah, well, where do I start? The shootings, 41 people shot in Chicago. 40. It's usually more than that. As the day kind of goes on, you find out people were dropped off at the hospital or found in the alley or something like this. But the one that has kind of Chicago a little more on edge is in River North, which is kind of the postcard of Chicago, downtown Chicago. When people think of Chicago, they're basically thinking of that River North area. 8 people were shot critically right outside of a restaurant. I mean, it almost sounds like something that would happen in a terrorist attack, right?
Mm.
And so this is, this is a little, this is becoming more and more unnerving. I'm hearing more and more people saying that they want to just simply move. You can't go to a restaurant now without having somebody unload, a gun right in front of the restaurant. There's, you know, and this is on top of the armed robberies that are taking place primarily, well, all over the city. But, on the north side, you have, 10, 12, 15 armed robberies that take place like within an hour. So it's obviously the same group of people. And it's not like it's news. I mean, it's not like the police that, are completely caught off guard by this. This is something that happens on a nightly basis now. Stores are being robbed again. These are businesses that are on a very thin margin. Many of them barely survived the lockdowns and the looting of Lightfoot, and now they're being robbed. I mean, how do they stay? What are the chances that they're going to stay open after all this? But then here's the new layer on top of that. My sources are telling me to expect gang retaliation. A lot of these, because apparently the armed robbery and the store robbery opportunities are so great. Gangs are now vying for territory for where they can just pick off law-abiding citizens on walking their dog or going for coffee or walking to work or school in the morning. So expect a gang turf warfare just over who gets to rob Chicagoans on the sidewalk, Kat.
Wow. So this was this gang related? Do you know these 8
Oh well, I
people
mean
shot?
these are definitely gangs. What my sources are telling me is now you can what we should be expecting is various gangs fighting over who gets to rob the Chicagoans. This is and usually what happens in a situation like that, this is you get a warlord, you get somebody who fills this vacuum of leadership, and really, typically you would have a vigorous police response. It is a very apparent to the people who live in these communities, and I've spoken with them and actually gotten to know many of them as well as the police officers that patrol these neighborhoods. That there is no police response. There's a new video that just of surveillance footage that I just obtained, where a guy's just walking down the street, and the video shows the armed robbers coming up behind him. Of course, the obligatory punch to the back of the head, because they're cowards, and then they just rifle through his pockets while he's on the ground. These Chicagoans are essentially their own first responders now. Whether or not they're up to the challenge, I don't know. But they are their own first responders. And Kat, this is almost going to sound funny, but or dark humor or something. But I've spoken with other city employees who tell me that this is truly a biohazard. There's so much blood on the streets,
Oh
on the
gosh.
sidewalks,
Oh
that
gosh.
the city really has to come up with a better system for washing off this blood with using some type of bleach or something like this, because right now they just hose it down. And what people don't realize in the morning when they go to walk their dog or get coffee is that they're literally tracking blood and brain matter on the bottoms of their shoes. So there's that. One of the shootings that took place over the weekend, there were 70 shell casings. I mean, literally, people are walking through shell casings. They're walking through lead like they're walking around, a firing range. So
Wow.
you tell me, Kat.
Incredible.
And
Well, and one thing I wanted to also ask you about is, what is it? And I'm sure you've seen this movie, and I can't wait to go watch it. It's Police State. I'm sure you've kind of heard about it, but one thing that I can't seem to wrap my head around is that, in other police states, and we've seen this throughout history, it's nothing new, uh, where they don't put up with degeneracy, they don't put up with, violent criminals.
Right.
The police states don't, but it's weird because here in America, our police and our law enforcement almost enable it via the Safety
Well, yeah,
Act. And,
yeah. Yeah, we live in the bizarro police state where if you actually don't if you're not celebrating the degeneracy, then you're the threat, I guess. Governor Pritzker was just on Face the Nation, and it was like listening to the like I said, like bizarro world, opposite world, where instead of saying that he wants to shut the border because Chicago and Illinois are being flooded with 25, get this, 25 busfuls of migrants per day. Okay, this is not 25 since the crisis began, or 25 a week. No, 25 busloads per day, 1,500 to 2,000 migrants. And Governor Pritzker went on Face the Nation this weekend, and instead of saying, please, Governor or President Biden, close the border, this is destroying us. What he said is, give me more money because I need to prepare for the DNC, which is the Democrat National Convention, which is going to be held. Get this, buckle up in case you didn't already know this. The Democrats will be hosting their national convention in Chicago next year to nominate or renominate a presidential candidate. Well, I got news for you, Kat. This is not going to end well. This is not going to be pretty. That's for damn sure. Between the violent crime and the migrants, the DNC is going to have Pritzker is going to have put on quite a convention in Chicago. I guarantee you that.
Yeah. I mean, it's just incredible how he is just so far removed from the people and from what is actually going on. He's so focused on the money. And I'm just going to say it. I just don't know how they're going to be able to continue to house those people. I mean, there's lawsuits right now. A couple of civilians out of the Chicago community, they're suing Brandon Johnson because of the inhumane conditions for housing these illegal immigrants in these shelters, police stations. I here in Bloomington Normal, I think it's odd that both of our city councils have continued this approving of permits for multifamily housing. And we know nationwide that our housing market, there's not a whole lot of people looking to buy right now, right? And yet we're flooding the market with all of these homes. And, they keep telling us that there's a shortage, but I just don't know about that. And there's been private developers here in Bloomington Normal, big ones, that say, I don't think that there's this housing crisis. And, the question that comes to my head is, are they building these multifamily housing units to prepare to house these guys that are in Chicago and places like Bloomington Normal, places like Lincoln, Chicago, or Springfield,
Well, their current plan is to build tents for the migrants in Chicago in the winter. I have a feeling that they're going to realize very quickly, as the weather is getting colder by the minute here, that they're going to have a plan B, C, D, and of course everything is an emergency now. Everything's a crisis, so there's no real consulting a community or a local official or we're only now finding out about the millions and millions and millions of COVID relief funds that were fraudulently obtained by Chicago street gangs, believe it or not. So so they use the cover of I guess from what I'm being told from my sources, these corrupt and or incompetent Chicago, Illinois politicians use the excuse of that it's an emergency to basically spend millions of dollars or hand out millions of dollars to their friends, and no one ever really finds out accounts for where it's being spent or what it's being spent on. And it's only years later that we find out that it went, to Chicago street gangs or what have you. And we were all supposed to be quiet, if you recall, during the lockdowns and the looting of COVID. We were all supposed to be quiet, or else we weren't good Americans. And as a reporter, that kind of was a little bit of a head scratcher for me because, I was raised, from childhood, as I'm sure you were too, to believe that the only stupid question is, the only stupid question is the one that you don't ask. It's good to ask questions. It's good to do your own research. But of course, they told us during the lockdowns and the looting that we shouldn't be asking questions. That was the first red flag for me anyway, that they didn't even want us to ask questions about where all these millions of dollars are going. And now they're doing the exact same thing with the migrants. A big part of the story that is just not getting out, other than on your show, thanks to you providing this opportunity, the migrant crimes. This is not just, it's being portrayed as a humanitarian crisis, that these are, quote, migrants. They keep, even in the Chicago media, they refer to them as migrants from Texas. They're not from Texas. They're from Venezuela. They make it out as if they were somehow they were born in Texas and they've been kicked out of Texas. No, they're not from Texas.
Well, even here locally, William, sometimes I'll see it and they'll refer to, and they've got names like Gomez and blah, blah, blah. And they say that, they're from Texas. There was, I think, a group of illegals in this taking of multiple cars. It was like an illegal car ring, and they were stealing cars. And they refer here locally, the media was referring to them as Texas men. And I'm like, wait a second. I was like, look at these guys. These guys aren't Texas men. These guys are literally illegal immigrants.
Exactly. And here's the other thing that as a Chicagoan, this gets me is, whenever a migrant is, charged with a crime, they refer to him as a Chicago man. Now they're referring, because of course the Chicago media doesn't want to say migrant. They don't want to say illegal. So they say Chicago man. So sleeping on the floor of a police, sleeping on the floor of an airport for a week makes you a Chicago man. That's the definition of a Chicago man now? What the heck is going on here, Kat? We really do have a lack of leadership. That's the other thing that is just a real head scratcher. Where are the Illinois Republicans? Where are the Illinois leaders to actually stand up and say that to speak out against any of this? And it's very reminiscent of the lockdowns and the lootings of COVID and during the Lightfoot years in particular, when I would go to these press conferences and I would try to ask basic questions about lockdowns, looting, trampling of civil rights, of law-abiding citizens, etc. And I didn't have a single Illinois Republican standing up and saying that I could see anywhere within my geography saying anything about challenging any of these restrictions, the lockdowns, the spending on the COVID, and where that money was going, millions and millions of dollars, and it really is the thing that is so worrisome about this migrant crisis, as they call it, is that it's the exact same MO, modus operandi, that they used during COVID. Just take millions and millions of dollars out of the budget. A million here, a million there. Johnson signed a $30 million contract with a company called Garda World to build these tents in the wintertime. Nobody approved it. He didn't even consult anybody. So just, $30 million spent on the mayor of Chicago just decided, boom, I'm going to spend $30 million on tents. And how many years is it going to take to actually get the information on where that money went, and what it was spent on. Because if history is any guide, we're not going to get $30 million worth of tents. We're going to get $30 million worth of, somebody's going to get $30 million, but if history is any guide, it's not going to be for what, it's not going to be spent on what these, Chicago politicians claim that it's being spent on.
William, thank you so much. We got to go to break, but reporter William, jkelly.com. Go find him on Twitter, folks. Reporter William J. Kelly. William, God bless you, my friend.
God bless you, Kat. Thank you.
All right, we're going to be back on the other side. This is Cities 92.9. Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. You can always text in at 309-451-9299. So what did we talk about in the 6 o'clock hour? Well, we went through all the Chicago crime with William J. Kelly. I told you a little bit about the U.S. Office of Palestinian Affairs and their initial tweet. Their initial tweet was not great. They said, "We unequivocally condemn the attack of the Hamas terrorists and the loss of life that is incurred." Okay, great. That's awesome. And then they go on in the tweet and they say, "We urge all sides to refrain from violence and retaliatory attacks." So they're saying, "Hey, Israel, don't defend yourself against these radical Islamic terrorists, these militants, these Hamas militants. Don't defend yourself because terror and violence solve nothing." That's what this tweet said. They deleted the tweet. They knew the tweet was wrong. They deleted it, and the Biden administration has yet to come out publicly and denounce this. He needs to come out onto that microphone and he needs to say, "Look, we fired this guy for coming out and calling for Israel not to defend themselves. Uh, Somebody needs to be fired." So when we come back, there's a couple stories I got to get through. Los Angeles, you won't believe it, the school district, you know, it's been revealed now for 2022, 58.29% of the students did not meet the state standards in English. That's over half of kids. They can't meet the standards of English. And only 28.49% of the students there in the state of California met the standard in math. 71% are not meeting it. So 71% of students can't do math at grade level in this state. But guess what they're doing? They're focusing on National Coming Out Day this week, and they have a week-long celebration celebrating National Coming Out Day, and they want elementary students as young as 5 years old to participate in all kinds of different, like lessons, events, gymnasium, like gatherings, surrounding LGBT topics. So we're going to talk about that here next on the Buzz. Hey, folks, thanks so much. Sorry about the first 10 minutes of the show. I think that my microphone was off. I appreciate you guys um, reaching out and letting me know that the first 10 minutes was silent. Hey, if you can hear me, go ahead and smash the like button. We're going to come back. Peter Ducey, also trolling Joe Biden. um, he trolls the poop stained pants off of Joe Biden. When Joe Biden, he rambles on about pushing a dog into a lake, which he's talking about how the media. So I'm going to directly quote Joe Biden here. He says, "You turn on the television and there's a whole lot about boy saves dog as he swims in the lake. You know, it's about somebody pushed the dog in the lake." So he's saying that there's a lot of negative stories about him because, you know, negative stories get more clicks, things like that. That's what he's trying to say there. He didn't quite get that out and and make his point. But Peter Ducey trolled him in a report that he did, and I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was quite hilarious. So we're going to chat a little bit about that, and then a bit later we will be talking about Hamas, the squad members. They were slammed after calling for a ceasefire in all of the Hamas attacks on Israel. So they were calling for, nobody to fire back. They didn't want Israel to fire back to defend itself, the squad members. And it shouldn't surprise you that there's a lot of people in San Francisco, New York City, these Democrat run cities, they're protesting, but they're not protesting against the Hamas terrorist organization. No, 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 no. Uh, they are protesting against Israel. They're pro Hamas support groups, and they are outside of Washington, D.C. They're quoting Mao Zedong. This is just wild. I can't believe that this is the United States. And, people have gotten all in a tizzy because I've quoted the Bible and I've talked about how Israel is God's country, and God refers to Israel as he does no other land on earth, and he raises Israel to be the light, to be a light to the Gentiles. Okay, and what's going on today is very biblical. It's apocalyptic prophecy, actually. So people are upset. They're like, "Oh, Kat, how could you? Because it's real. Is that why you're upset?" um, Sorry that you're upset that I mentioned that Israel is God's country and that it's quoted in the Bible and repeated in the Bible multiple times um, as such. So we're going to talk about Hamas. We're going to talk about the $6 billion that was given to Iran. Now, one thing that I do want to also talk about is Hillary Clinton, and she calls for a formal deprogramming of Trump supporters. I'm sure you guys heard that last week. But it's important, I think, that we touch on it again. And this is all historic. I mean, this is not anything new. What they try to do is they try to dehumanize. So they've already done that. They've dehumanized Republicans. I mean, and conservatives, people who vote a certain way, people who are Christian, they try to dehumanize them and try to make them out to be like some sort of redneck, with one tooth and drinking a bunch of beer. And, they tried to dehumanize these people, Republicans specifically. And they've been doing this for a long time. And then it gets to the point where they try to demonize. So they dehumanize and then they demonize. So they try to make you into this evil being. So that's what Hillary Clinton is doing here. She says that it needs to be a formal deprogramming of Trump supporters. She's not dumb. Okay. She's not dumb. She doesn't say this just because, um, it's fun. She doesn't say it just because that's what she thinks. She's doing this very purposefully, and leaders at the top have done this for years and years and years. I think 1917, um, uh, communist China, the redcoats, right? We've seen this in history where they go and they demonize a group of people, the resistance, the people who are politically dissenting, and then they try to neutralize that political dissent through killing them, exterminating them, deprogramming them. So Hillary, she called for a formal deprogramming of Trump supporters during a CNN interview. And this is not a joke. This is not just, her thoughts. This is a tactic. They want to dehumanize Trump supporters. They want to make you not like everybody else, and they want to demonize you. They've already done that with January 6th. Um, and people are shocked when I tell them that there's still people being detained from January 6th, and they've been held without bail and they've been revoked bail. And they're sitting in these 5 by 5 cells, like with a bucket and with a thin blue mat with no clothes on. They're given like gym shorts. These men are given gym shorts and they're political prisoners. And they're like, no, that's not true. And then you show them the evidence, the photographed evidence, and then the video evidence. And then see, this is like a religion to them. Their ideology has become their religion and they just can't believe that it's wrong. And when you show them, hey, this is the photographed evidence of this political prisoner, he wasn't even in the Capitol that day. And then they're like jaw drops. They're like, "What?" And they're like, "Well, he deserves it." Right? And that is part of the whole dehumanization process, is getting somebody to believe their ideology so fervently that they're willing to dehumanize somebody uh in favor of it. So um we're going to be chatting a little bit about Hillary and what she said about Trump supporters. If you're watching, go ahead and smash the like button. We're back in just a couple of minutes. Haha, Deucey. He's doing it again. He's trolling this guy, Joe Biden. So Joe Biden goes on this really weird tangent and he talks about how when you turn on the television, there's this boy saves dog, and there's not a whole lot of boy save dog as he swims into the lake, but there's a lot of, somebody pushed the dog into the lake. So what he's trying to say there is that there's a lot of negative stories about him. So the people who run Joe Biden made this mistake of letting the president speak to reporters on Friday. And those are the comments he made. He said, the reason why Americans refuse to believe that he's doing an awesome job is because, well, and Joe Biden, with this straight face, blamed the media for reporting negative stories about him. No one found this more amusing than Peter Ducey, of all people, right? Peter found this very funny, and he trolls him. And I got to play that for you in his most recent report. He's trolling President Joe Biden. I think it's hilarious. We're going to get to that. We're also going to continue our talk about, because it's important. And, as a Christian, and I know that people don't like that, and that's fine. I've always been very honest about my faith. And I'm sorry that the Bible speaks about Israel in a certain way. And as a Christian, I think that we should stand with Israel. And we're not. despite what, President Joe Biden has put in statements, because your actions speak louder than your words there, Joe Biden. Joe Biden sent $6 billion to Iran. It wouldn't have happened had not Afghanistan happened. He sent $6 billion. Now we've got Tony Blinken out there saying things and lying, really. He's trying to say that, the $6 billion, we couldn't have known that that was going to happen. The $6 billion, we couldn't have known that this was going to be used to commit an act of terror in the dead of night and, against innocent civilians, women, children. We couldn't have known that this would. No, 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 no. Tony Blinken, let's dumb this down a little bit. I have $10 in my back pocket. Okay. Somebody gives me $30. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to the grocery store and I'm going to use the $10 that I had in my back pocket and I'm going to use it to buy the ice cream. I wasn't going to buy the ice cream prior to having that $30 because I wasn't in a financial situation where I could go buy the ice cream. But now that I have an extra $30, I'm going to use the $10 in my back pocket and go buy the ice cream. That's essentially what happened with this $6 billion. Tony Blinken, here he is on CNN describing how the $6 billion was supposed to be used for for humanitarian aid. Of course, it's always used for humanitarian aid. There's no telling where this money goes once we send it to these countries. Same case in Ukraine. Who knows what it's being used for? We now know that a lot of the money, that the $135 billion that we've been sending to Ukraine, most of that is being used to prop up businesses there, to pay the salaries of all of the EMS workers in that country, and to pay for farmers to get seed into the ground. We're propping up their economy with the $135 to date. $1 billion to date is how much we've sent over to Ukraine. Let's take a listen to Tony Blinken on CNN.
Is that Iran's posture, that the U.S., your administration's posture towards Iran has helped contribute to this. I want to give you a chance to respond.
Well, there are two things here. First, with regard to the funds that you mentioned that were were made available to Iran for humanitarian purposes as part of getting Americans back who are being held and detained in Iran. Let's be very clear about this. And it's deeply unfortunate that some are playing politics when so many lives have been lost and Israel remains under attack. The facts are these. No U.S. Taxpayer dollars were involved. These were Iranian resources that Iran had accumulated from the sale of its oil that were stuck in a bank in South Korea. They have had from day one, under our law, under our sanctions, the right to use these monies for humanitarian purposes.
So there you have it. Tony Blinken straight up lying. We did give $6 billion to Iran, which then gave it to Palestine, which then got into the hands of these Hamas terrorist organizations to go launch all of these rockets. I think it was like 5,000 rockets. It was during Shabbat. It was during a religious holiday. I think it was the Feast of Tabernacles. It's one of the last religious feasts in the Jewish faith. And it's tragic because they're going after women, children. I've got a couple of stories here, and I know this is heavy lifting, and you're going to be like, Kat, why? It's so important. It's so important that you know what's going on because they're going to try to cover it up. They're going to try. And I'm already seeing in the media, they're referring to what's going on as an incursion, which I just find really odd. They say incursion. This is not an incursion. You're using the word incursion to describe 700 plus dead Israelis, thousands wounded, and dozens of hostages paraded around Gaza. But before I get into all that, one thing I did want to tell you is, look, Tony Blinken there is lying. He's saying that $6 billion, it was a hostage exchange situation. Here's what happened. We had hostages in Iran, and we had their hostages, and there was an exchange that happened. We were exchanging each other's hostages. And then on top of that, we paid $6 billion to Iran. Iran didn't pay us for their hostages back. Okay, but we paid them for our hostages back, and we gave them their hostages back. So it was a hostage exchange, plus for some odd reason, we gave them $6 billion. So we got shafted in that deal, and it was a bad deal. And it shouldn't have happened, and it wouldn't have happened had we not had a rotting bag of oatmeal in the office of the presidency. And it would not have happened, bottom line. And uh, Joe Biden and all their people can come out and say that they're pro as Israel or and they're pro-Israeli, and they can say that all they want, but their actions speak louder than their words. You can put all of the statements you want about standing with Israel. You can do all this aid, and yeah, sure. Your actions led up to this. They would not have been attacked had it not been for Joe Biden, that $6 billion given to Iran. It just wouldn't have happened. And I'm sorry when people say that Joe Biden, oh yeah, he's okay, he's standing with Israel. Shut up! It's not true. He's not standing with Israel because his actions speak louder than his words, and well, than his statements that are put out there by his staff. One thing that I did want to tell you about what's going on over there, and I know it's heavy lifting, but you're going to see the video if you are on social media. But Hamas, just to give you a glimpse into what's going on there are Americans over there as well being taken hostage and being killed. Hamas executed a child in front of her siblings and her entire family while they were being held captive. They paraded the naked body of a German female citizen, and they killed her in the back of a Jeep, and they paraded her throughout the Gaza Strip. The world is watching Israel be attacked by these uh, Hamas militants, and law enforcement agencies around the country are now on high alert. Among those killed in Israel at the hands of Hamas include Americans, Canadians, Germans, everybody who was there. Right. So now what the U.S. did, and you're like, okay, Kat, but the U.S. is responding, and it's good that Joe Biden sent out this U.S. These naval assets, which there is this huge ship, and it's really kind of cool. It's an aircraft carrier, and it's one of the largest. And we sent it out there to a section of the Mediterranean Sea, the eastern section of the Mediterranean Sea, out there yesterday. And we did that as a sign of support to show support for Israel, as well as support for those evacuating, U.S. citizens who are evacuating, because U.S. citizens were over there. Okay. And um, we have that ship over there. I think that's all posturing. I don't think that Joe Biden is actually going to do anything to get those people out of there. I think it's just all posturing at this point. So in response to moving that ship out there with those aircraft carrier to try to evacuate these Americans, guess what Hamas did? Hamas threatened the Biden administration, and they said that they must realize the consequences of this step. And the Hamas terrorist organization even came out and said that they weren't scared of the Biden administration, and that they were going to continue what they're doing, and that we must realize. Could you, I can't believe it. I can't believe it that we didn't just, I don't know. It's a good thing that I'm not the president of the United States. You threaten the United States like this? Are you serious? And I've got old tweets from President Donald Trump. This would not have happened under President Donald Trump because everybody knew you don't mess with the United States. You don't mess with Americans. And one thing that I was reading an old tweet. He goes, "Iran better not mess with us," and he goes, "Oh gosh, I'm gonna look at the tweet here." It was incredible. I was like, "Man, if we had that in office, then we wouldn't be going through this right now." But Donald Trump, he just says, "Look, folks, uh, Iran, you better not mess with us. You better realize the consequences of messing with us." He goes, here's the exact quote from Donald Trump back in 2020. He goes, "Some friendly advice to Iran. If one American is killed, I will hold Iran responsible. Think it over." So that's the kind of leader we had. He said, "Think it over. If one American is even killed, I would think that over. I'm going to hold you responsible." So yeah, it wouldn't have happened if Donald Trump was in office. And we have these Democrat groups in Washington D.C., New York City, San Francisco. They are all celebrating the brutal slaying of Jews throughout the United States. We've got these Democrats who are supporting this, and I am going to get to the squad members because they're the leaders behind all of this. Why do you think there's these people out in Washington D.C. celebrating, dancing over the fact that we have Jews, women, children uh, being paraded on the back of jeeps, slaughtered Why do you think that we have people like that here in the United States who are pro-Hamas? Well, I'll tell you, it's because we have the squad members, AOC and the like, uh, out there trying to equate Hamas deaths, terrorist organization deaths, these people to Israeli deaths, and they're saying that all violence is bad and that the Israelis shouldn't have oppressed the Palestinians or occupied Palestine. Um, and it's just so awful that we've got leaders in this country that would come out and say something like that. But we're going to get into that here in a little bit. I do want to shift gears. Let's talk about Los Angeles. This is huge. 58% of students did not meet the state's standard. So, Los Angeles, California, they didn't meet the English standard. They also didn't meet the math standard. 71% of them are not meeting the math standard in that state. But guess what the Los Angeles Board of Education is going to be doing? They, you would think that they'd be more focused on education, given the dire test scores that I'm reading off to you here. Well, there's more important things, according to this district. Starting today, the Los Angeles elementary schools, students as young as 5 years old, they are going to be talking about National Coming Out Day. It's a week-long celebration because that's definitely what education is for. So it's called a Week of Action Toolkit, and it was sent to teachers. And basically, what it does, it outlines lesson plans for students as young as 5 around the topics of LGBT things. So the document was shared with the City Journal. That's a news publication, and it noted that teachers can adapt the lesson plans to better suit the needs of their classrooms. So you can kind of change it up if you want. If you're a teacher who teaches 5-year-olds, I can't believe it. The program also includes an identity map activity, spotlights on prominent gay and trans figures, and a pledge of allyship. So there's an identity map. There's the gay and trans figures that they put in the spotlight throughout the week. And then there's this at the very end of this curriculum, I guess. I'm just going to call it like lesson plans that were sent. At the very end, you have to take a pledge of allyship. So you have to be an ally of the LGBTQ. So the toolkit suggests that students engage in a gallery walk of everyone's identity map and complete writing prompts that include questions like, who am I? What did I learn about my identity? What were some of your identities that were the same or different from your classmates? So there's like a map, and you have to answer all of these questions, and then you have to, kind of take a gallery walk of each student's identity. It's weird. And the teachers are also putting out these pictures of all of these, prominent gay and trans figures. So I think one of them, oh gosh, there was one, and I forget this woman's name, but she's an actress, and he's an actress, or she's an actress, and he's now a he, and he cuts off his breasts, or her breasts. I know I can't even keep up with it. And now they're like putting this person out there as a celebrated trans individual. Elliot Page, that's it. So each day also includes an assigned celebrity who aligns with the alphabet mob. And Elliot Page was the actress who cut her breasts off. So it's insane that educators are going out and they're promoting this mental delusion that causes someone to butcher themselves and chop off healthy body parts. Which is really kind of crazy because I watched the Tucker Carlson video. It was an interview he had, and Governor J.B. Pritzker was actually mentioned and the Pritzker family, because they are profiting off of the Trans Incorporated, the trans or medical complex. It's insane what kind of role they have in it, the Pritzker family. But in Iran, it's practice genital mutilation. So if you're like gay or lesbian in Iran, really doesn't matter because they will just mutilate you. And a lot of people in the LGB community, like the people who are gay, they don't like what's going on with the tea part of it, because they're like, whoa, this is trying to change who I am as a gay man, and chop off my body parts because I like men. They want to chop off my body parts because I like men. That's what happens in Iran. If you like men and you're a man, they'll just chop off your body parts, to make it work, right? It's called genital mutilation. That's what they do, to gay people in that country. So yeah, I watched that. Pritzker has a huge part in it, but this is sad. Kindergartners taking part in this take a pledge to be an ally. So it ends with this allyship pledge where students are forced to take a pledge to use language when talking about teachers, staff, classmates, their family members, and they have to, call people their pronouns. You have to use your pronouns when you introduce yourself to somebody. It's very odd, and we're talking about 5-year-olds here, kids who are 5. I'll be back on the other side. This is the Morning Buzz. AOC and the squad members, they're slammed after calling for a ceasefire in all the Hamas attacks on Israel. We're going to be back with that. Ducey is actually trolling Joe Biden here because Joe Biden really came out and said that, the media just does all of this negative reporting on him. That's why there's such a bad poll. Like, the polling is so bad and why Americans don't like him. He says it's because of the negative media reporting. So Ducey trolls him, and I think it's really funny. On the other side, this is the Buzz. Me too. I miss the mean tweets. Hey, if you're watching right now, go ahead and smash that like button. It'll definitely help me out. Yeah, I miss the mean tweets. I was looking up the tweet that Donald Trump had out there when it came to Iran. He goes, if Iran hurts one American, then I'm going to hold them responsible. And he says, think it over. So he threatens Iran. In the Biden administration, we've got Hamas threatening Joe Biden. Uh, Hamas literally came out and they said, we're not scared of you. And if you dare try to evacuate your citizens from Israel, or if you dare try to start anything with us, um, then there's going to be consequences, and you have to realize the consequences of that, of getting involved. So we have Americans over there. We had this big naval carrier go over there, and we were trying to like show support, which I think is all posturing from the Biden administration. They weren't actually going to do anything. It's just posturing. And for the Biden administration to come out and say, "Oh, look, we're doing something." Although the Biden administration like caused this to happen. Okay, so with the $6 billion, with everything, this wouldn't have happened if there wasn't this conflict going on in Ukraine. And we can't fund 2 war efforts. So that's the thing too, is, we're $135 billion to Ukraine. We're already in a financial mess, right? Because of this continuous aid. And I've had people, Kat, we should just forgive the people like Darren LaHood and Mike Boss for sending $3 billion in aid and signing off these aid packages. No, 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 no. Sure. I mean, I'll forgive them, but that doesn't mean I'm going to vote for them. They should be forgiven of their sins. It's not my sin to forgive, really. It's up to Jesus and God to forgive their sin, because that is a sin. Sending money over to Ukraine is a sin. Um, if you look at what's going on in Ukraine and the people who are operating that country, I'm talking specifically about the ambassador over there, who is an actual witch, like, actually does spirit cooking, actually is a self-proclaimed Satanist. Like, she's not I'm not playing when I say that. She sent an invite to the Podesta brothers, actually, John and Tony Podesta, who worked on the Hillary Clinton campaign, and it was through the WikiLeaks emails we found this out, that she sent an email that invited the Podesta brothers to a spirit cooking, and look up spirit cooking in your spare time. But we're sending money over to people like that, to Zelensky, who, just look up Zelensky's prior life, or like life as an actor. And I think that we're sending it to a degenerate country. Okay. We're sending aid to a degenerate leadership country. And I'm not talking about the Ukrainian people. I've had Ukrainian people here, pastors, who are actually going through um, hell there, because this war in Ukraine, but it's not our battle to fight. And we definitely shouldn't be fueling people who are self-proclaimed Satanists, witches. It's weird. But $135 billion, I've told you before several times what that $135 billion could have been used for. The Maui fires, giving each family $50 million. Like, just think about that. Each family in West Maui to rebuild their lives, we could have given them $50 million. We could have made American citizens millionaires overnight with that kind of money, and we could end homelessness for veterans in this country. We could give them $2 million each, each American veteran, homeless veteran. So that's what we could use with $135 billion. And I'm not saying we should use it for that, but I am saying that we definitely shouldn't be sending it to, oh, I don't know, the ambassador of Ukraine and Zelensky, who are terrible people. Uh, but we can't fund two wars at the same time. So I don't know what we're going to do. We're going to have to pick one, Israel or Ukraine, if we're going to fund, their war efforts and to give them aid of some kind. Israel. Now, I wish that American leaders were defending Americans as much as they are Israel. I really don't want to see aid sent over there. I'd like to stop the aid from, Ukraine. But as a Christian, like I said, Israel is God's country. Israel um, is mentioned several times throughout the Bible, and is repeated in the Bible that God wants that land to be a light for the Gentiles. So I would like to see Israel. I mean, I stand behind Israel, and I would like to see, us help. I think after a move like that from Hamas threatening the Biden administration, saying, I'm not afraid, I mean, you have to do something at that point, right? The Biden administration was threatened by a radical Islamic terrorist group. At that point, you have to do something. We're at this point now, and it shouldn't have never gotten to this point, and it wouldn't have gotten to this point had Trump been in office. I mean, he sent out tweets, and the tweets scared people. This is why, Russia invading Ukraine didn't happen. Oh, well, Trump was in office. This whole Hamas attacking Israel didn't happen. Um, and we're aiding it, right? We're the ones. The Biden administration is aiding what happened with Hamas attacking Israel by giving that money, the $6 billion. He made it easier for Hamas to do it. We've made it easier for Russia to continue to invade Ukraine. Um, if we were strong, I've always said this, if America is strong, economically, if we're feared, a respectful fear, if we're feared by other nations, then the rest of the world just is better. We have good leadership in America, then the rest of the world just kind of falls into place. And we saw that. I mean, peace. Trump actually moved the U.S. embassy to Jerusalem, and there was peace in the Middle East. Now we have this. It's tragic. I just can't believe it. Hillary Clinton coming out, and actually, I can believe it, because here's the thing: this is the same old tired playbook that they bring out. And what Hillary Clinton is trying to do here, she's very smart. She's just trying to dehumanize Trump supporters. And you're mistaken. You're sadly mistaken if you say, "Oh, well, I'm not Donald Trump. I wasn't at January 6th. I didn't go inside of the Capitol. I wasn't even there. I wasn't even in the state. I was in Illinois." Did you vote for Trump in 2016? Did you vote for Trump in 2020? Do you plan to vote for Trump in 2024? Even if you didn't even vote for Donald Trump and you're just planning to vote for him in 2024, they know your internet patterns. They know your behaviors online. If you think for a second that you're not going to get a knock at the door someday, do you have that plan in place? What if the FBI busts down your door with one of those I don't know what you call them, those rams, battering rams or something like that? Do you have a plan in place? Have you had that conversation with your family? If this happens to me, here's what we need to do, because they're laying the groundwork. She is dehumanizing Trump supporters with this statement. Let's take a listen. Here we go.
Maybe there needs to be a
This is Hillary Clinton on CNN.
formal deprogramming of the cult members, but something needs to happen. And how, because at some point, maybe there needs to be a formal deprogramming of the cult members, but something needs to happen. And how, because
a formal deprogramming of the cult members. That's what she says. What? So she's dehumanizing Trump supporters. We've seen it in history. That's just the way they do it. They dehumanize you. I mean, you've kind of seen this leading up to this point where she's actually calling for the formal deprogramming of Trump supporters. They've demonized, or they've tried to create this idea that conservatives, that even Christians or Republicans, that they're these mouth breathing trailer trash, drinking 12 packs a day, of beer. They've tried to create that illusion. They tried to create the illusion that Democrats are the smart party and that they're more intellectually advanced. They've tried that. They're now just saying the quiet part out loud, that they're going to deprogram you. And this is just the same playbook. One thing that I wanted to talk about this morning before we get into Ducey trolling Joe Biden was the squad members. So you might be scratching your head and you're like, whoa, I mean, how could people in America be celebrating the Hamas terrorist attack? This was a terrorist attack that was done in the dead of night. It was done a surprise attack. It was done on a Jewish holiday, Festival of Tabernacles, and it was done during Shabbat. And this is really tragic to see women, children, elderly people paraded through the street, beat, and it's so sad to see that there's Americans here in this country, in San Francisco, New York City, right outside of the Washington D.C. Capitol, and right outside the Capitol, there were people celebrating, dancing, and they were pro-Hamas supporters, and they were like, yes, finally they're pushing back against the oppression from Israel. So the members of the squad in Congress, they were slammed because they were calling for a ceasefire in Israel instead of supporting the country's right to defend itself from these terrorist attacks. And you wonder why we have people that are dancing in the streets and celebrating these terrorist attacks here in America. It's because of these people. AOC, Cori Bush, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib. These people made it very clear that Israel is that they're the ones who were oppressing, that were occupying Palestine. So in an X post on Twitter, Ilhan Omar, she failed to condemn the attacks, actually, and she asked her supporters to pray for those in Gaza. And she said, reminder, Gaza doesn't have shelters or an iron dome, and please pray for them. So she's talking about the Israelis, how they have an iron dome, and how they have shelters and things like that. And she goes, please pray for those people because they don't have an iron dome. Gaza doesn't need an iron dome. Okay, because Israel is not indiscriminately launching missiles or aiming those missiles towards civilians. Okay, Ilhan Omar, they even make phone calls and warn civilians before they bomb anything. Okay, so that's what Israel does. That's the kind of war that they play, but they weren't even doing that. And Israel was the one that was attacked. Okay, Gaza, the people in Gaza, they don't need the dome. So Omar, she goes on and she says, Palestinians are human beings and have been besieged and are deserving of protection from the international community. Marjorie Taylor Greene, she comes out and she says, you didn't even make it through the day before you called for the protection from the international community for Palestinians, which is Hamas. Okay, Palestinians, Hamas. It's really kind of, I don't even really understand all of it. It's very hard to keep up with, but I think Palestine have broken off from Israel. They want to become their own country. And even further from that, Palestine has become Hamas. And so these radical Islamic militants, Hamas, it's a terrorist organization, they've broken up from the Palestinians and they've kind of taken control over Palestine. And they're the ones who control that kind of faction. Um, and I mean, this is the danger, really, of narratives of victim narratives can actually start war. Playing into these victim narratives can actually start war, and that's exactly what Hamas did to Israel. They thought that they were victims. They broke themselves off. They thought that they were victims of Israel. And look, I'm just going to say it. BLM is watching this very closely. This is being watched by BLM, these race arsonists in America, and playing into victim narrative. I mean, we saw it kind of happen. Chaz, right? That's what this group kind of is. Hamas is kind of like this extremist group that kind of creates their own little faction and playing into the victim narratives. That's it leads to war. And I mean, they continue. Cori Bush, she goes, "I'm brokenhearted by the ongoing violence in Palestine and Israel. There is no violence. Palestine is causing the violence right now. They were the ones who did this surprise terrorist attack and bombed people at a music festival and were taking women and children and executing children in front of their families." She goes, "I mourn for the 250 Israelis and the 230 Palestinians, their lives that have been lost today. I strongly condemn the targeting of civilians, and I urge an immediate ceasefire and de-escalation to prevent further loss of life." What? So she mourns the death of these Palestinian terrorists and equates that to the brutalities and butcherings the Palestinians committed against these Jewish civilians. She's comparing the two. It's wild to me because the Israeli soldiers, they're defending themselves and they're killing off Palestinians. And, all death is terrible. I'm not saying that, but they're not comparable. Okay. It's like saying, I don't even know, you know, the killing of Hitler should be mourned in the same way that we mourn, I don't know, Gandhi, right? That's essentially what she's saying here. We should be mourning uh the Palestinian terrorists much like we mourn the civilians of Israel. No, they are not on the same level. Palestinian terrorists murdered children and their parents in their homes. They kidnapped women and their children uh, and a bunch of young girls from a music festival. There was a music festival there, and they kidnapped all of these women. And she says that this is the same as Israel killing these terrorists. She says that that's the same. No. By the way, Israel gives notice before leveling buildings in Gaza to ensure civilians get out. They go above and beyond to protect lives. So there's zero comparability here. Get this psychopathic terrorist bootlicker out of office. Cori Bush, AOC. We've talked about those two. Now I do want to talk about. Oh no, we've talked about Ilhan Omar, Cori Bush. Now I want to talk about AOC. Because the AOC is one of these types who loves the victim narrative. She's just obsessed with it. She goes, "Today is devastating for all those seeking lasting peace and respect for human rights in Israel and Palestine." So here we go. She condemned the attacks, but said that this violence will not solve the ongoing oppression and occupation in the region. And there it is. She's saying that the Hamas people are oppressed and that they're occupied by the Israelis. No. So in her official statement of her congressional account, from her congressional account, she posts this. She condemns the Hamas attacks while still being sure to condemn the Israeli occupation and oppression. Frankly, that's disgusting. It's a disgusting statement. You use the terms oppression and occupation. So you've obviously picked a side here, and it's clearly not Israel's. And I just can't believe it. Rashida Tlaib, another one of these people. I've got her statement here. "I grieve the Palestinian and the Israeli lives lost yesterday." She goes, "I'm determined. I'm determined as ever to fight for a just future where everyone can live in peace." And she goes on, "The path to that future must include lifting the blockade, ending the occupation." Here we go. She's saying, Israel, stop defending herself. Stop with the blockade. She goes, then dismantling the apartheid system that creates suffocating, dehumanizing conditions that can lead to resistance. So she's defending these terrorists. So we see it here in our own country, just not to this level yet. But make no mistake, I think that BLM is watching. BLM is watching, and they're taking note of how the Hamas terrorist organization has has been doing this, and they've been told from leaders in this country that they're oppressed. Now, it's no wonder that they're, you know, lashing out in this way. She goes, the failure to recognize the violent reality of living under siege, occupation, and apartheid makes no one safer. So that's what Rashida Tlaib said. Did she say this statement from one of the trucks kidnapping and murdering Israeli women and children? Did she say that behind one of the trucks? Because that's what's going on. They're taking these trucks, they're going through, they're kidnapping women, they're stripping them of their clothes, they're putting them on the backs of Jeeps and parading them around the Gaza Strip. I mean, this is just wild. 309-451-9299. I do have to take a break. I know that was a long one, but I just had to get through all of these women, the squad, AOC, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, Cori Bush. These people are psychopaths, and we need to get them out of office. On the other side, Joe Biden, he was the people who run Joe Biden, they made the mistake of letting him go out and speak in front of reporters. And, you know, when he was asked about why so many Americans refuse to believe that you're not doing an awesome job, Joe. Biden with a straight face. The reason why so many Americans disapprove of the way he's running things here in America, he says it's because the media is negatively reporting on him. No one found this more amusing than Ducey himself. I'm going to play Ducey. There's this clip he was trolling Joe Biden, and I think it's pretty funny after those comments. So I'll be back next. Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. I'm so tired of the Free Palestine chats. Like you said, Kat, Israeli only launches the attack after it's been attacked. They don't just go around blowing up buildings and killing hundreds. No, of course not. Israel has not been doing that. They try to paint this like oppression, this victim narrative, and that's what's they're trying to say that Palestine is oppressed by Israel. Similar in the similar vein where we have Black Lives Matter, where you know we have people saying that Black people are oppressed and that they're occupied by people in this nation through systemic racism. Right. So that's kind of similar, and we can kind of see how we've set up systems to like affirmative action, things like that, to try to address that oppression, that occupation. So that they claim, okay, this is a victim narrative. This is fake. It's fake, right? Obviously, because you can be whatever you want in the United States. Nobody actively oppresses you. We're not going and we're not locking Black people up for being Black. Okay, we've had historic atrocities happen. Slavery. We've had the 1960s, right, where you weren't allowed to eat in a diner or drink it from a water fountain without blacks only, whites only, right? We had those things happen. That's actual oppression. What we have here in the United States now is not oppression. Okay. And it's dangerous when you spin these victim narratives because then these victims start to get into their heads that, oh, I'm victimized. I need to revolt. I need to resist and I need to lash out. So we have leaders in this country claiming that these Palestinians are oppressed. So when you have Americans, American leaders, American congresswomen coming out and saying that the Hamas terrorist organization is oppressed, duh, of course they're going to think that this is okay. They're going to have the stamp of approval of Congress. Okay, Congress is the one who ultimately votes on declaring war, and we know that I don't even know if it was brought up today if America would come to the aid or come in defense and boots on the ground and defend Israel. I don't even know if we would have the votes for that after listening to the squad members here, which is wild to think about. But uh, of course, Hamas feels almost encouraged to do this kind of stuff. to do these surprise terrorist attacks. And like Ryan said, that Israel is just defending itself. They weren't the ones blowing up buildings and killing people. Okay, they were not actually oppressing these the Palestinians. That it's all cooked up. It's fake. It's similar to what we're going on, what's going on here in America. It's just at a very small scale right now. But if you don't think that Antifa, BLM, they're taking note of what Hamas is doing, then you're asleep, because BLM, these radical terrorist groups that think that they're victims, we see it in prisons a lot of the time. So that's why it was such a big deal, and why I was so pissed off about Sharon Chung. While she was on the McLean County board, she was, talking with inmates and their families, and trying to say that the prison itself was oppressive, that was that there were unsafe conditions, or that the prison wasn't up to speed when it comes to human accommodations, right? Like, they were being inhumane there at the McLean County Jail. I toured the jail shortly after that, and the thing that John Sandage, the McLean County sheriff at the time, was telling me, he was like, "Look, Kat, uh, that's dangerous to go and to tell people who are in prison, because they committed a crime, that they're oppressed, or that they're being treated inhumanely, when they're clearly not." Okay, because then there's this victim narrative that's sewn in, and then you start to build this. When you have a board member, somebody of a place of authority, telling somebody that, "Oh yeah, you're oppressed," that's going to open up the county board, or the county, the government, and the taxpayer, to be on the hook for things like lawsuits. And what if the family were to bring a lawsuit against the county for unsafe conditions? So I went and I did my due diligence, and I toured the jail, to make sure that they're, being fed, being taken care of, because you have to meet some sort of level of, you know, humanity. Like, you can't treat people inhumanely in prison in America. That's just not the way it works. Um, and I did my due diligence, and these people are living very, very, I mean, for committing crimes and for being in jail, you're living a very nice lifestyle, okay? There were smart boards in there. I mean, our taxpayers are hard at work at that jail, okay? There were, like, posters. It was like a classroom that was similar to that of one I went to in college. Like, I walked into one of their classrooms where they teach the inmates, and where they have lessons, and where they study. And I'm like looking at this, and I'm like, man, this looks similar to a college classroom, like at ISU. Like, it looks pretty much the same. They're given, tampons, they're given all kinds of things. And they've got, clothes, they've got all kinds of things they're given. Um, and it's dangerous when you push victim narratives. There's danger that comes when you push out these victim narratives. So on the live stream, if you're just tuning in, I was telling the live stream folks, that's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. You guys can always see me there. I was telling them a little story about Sharon Chung, who was on the McLean County board. She's now a state representative. And this kind of reminds me, to a much smaller scale, okay, of what's going on in Israel and Hamas. So Hamas, right? This is a militant group. They are a radical Islamic terrorist organization that has broken off from Palestine. Palestine itself has broken off from Israel, and they claim that they're oppressed, that they're occupied by Israel. They've kind of created their own faction. We've seen that here in the United States, actually. Chaz, if you remember, it was a radical group. They created their own city, essentially, complete with, like, barricades, with borders, with officials that they voted in. It was very odd, Chaz was. And it was occupied by people with guns and protected by people with big guns, militants. So we've seen this, and I bring up Sharon Chung, this victim narrative. And I remember talking with John Sandage at the time when this was all going on. There was, talk about how Sharon Chung was talking with the family members of inmates and trying to instill, or to uh, really fabricate She was trying to fabricate a victim narrative, and she tried to claim that the people who were in the McLean County Jail were being treated poorly, that they were being oppressed, that they were being treated inhumanely. To which then I went to the McLean County Jail and I toured the jail, and I mean, the classroom, they had a classroom there that looked almost so similar. I think there was a flat screen in there. It looked like my college classroom at ISU. It looked the exact same. And I went there. I mean, it is a jail. It's not the best place in the world. It's not Disney World, right? But it's not supposed to be. But went there, toured there. I don't know what the hell she's talking about, a victim, that they're victims of oppression or, inhumane treatment over at the McLean County Jail. They're treated just fine. They're treated like prisoners. But they're given, education. They're given, and the staff there, the COs, they take such pride in that. When you start to fabricate and cook up victim narratives, you're looking at things, especially in a jail setting. And this was why I was so peeved off about it. I actually went to the jail to just say I went to the jail to look at. I didn't think that there was actual oppression going on or that they were being mistreated, but I wanted to say, hey, I went to the jail and I looked and I was looking. I actively looked. I asked questions um, about the treatment of the inmates, and everything looked good to me. I don't know, unless there's like some sort of secret room that I have no idea about, but uh that could lead to riots, that could lead to lawsuits, that could lead to a whole lot of trouble for the COs. And when you create these victim narratives that are fabricated and just untrue, then you start to see things like this play out, where there's riots, where there's where it escalates to the point of a surprise terrorist attack. And our congresswomen, I just told you, all of them, Ilhan Omar, Cory Bush, AOC, and Rashida Tlaib, they're all saying that that the Palestinians are occupied and oppressed by Israel. And that's just not true. And it's fabricated. And it's going to lead to a whole lot of hell. And we're starting to see that, so see it play out. And make no mistake, I think BLM, Antifa, they're looking at what's going on in Israel and they're taking note. Okay, they're taking note and they're like, okay, so this is how you get out from underneath the oppression, occupation, whatever the heck they say, and this is how we're supposed to do it. So wake up. Good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. I'm going to be back on the other side. Peter Ducey trolling Joe Biden. That's going to be pretty funny next hour. We also have to talk a little bit more about that Los Angeles school district. I'll be back. Good morning. Hey, thanks so much. I'm going to read some of your comments. If you're watching right now, go ahead and smash that like button. Share this out with your friends. People in reality don't push or question victim mentalities unless brainwashed or leaders in the community pushing it. All our taxes pay for all of it. Good for you for going out there. I do know their phones are not sanitary and usually broke. LOL. Yeah, I don't know. I think that they get iPads. They also have to pay, like at the McLean County Jail. They have to pay to use the internet. I think it is like, uh, I don't know. I mean, the fact that they've got phones and internet at all. I mean, what happened to, prisoners, reading books, right? But I think that they've got iPads. They might even have cell phones. Who knows? I can't remember so much, but all I remember is that they were treated very well. And I remember specifically that classroom because it stuck out to me because it looked much like the classroom I went to at Illinois State University. And when you're talking about prison and having access to a state of the art, classroom, that's pretty cool. And I got to talk to some of the CEOs, the nicest people, and actually they go without. That's the thing, is the CEOs are the actual ones who are oppressed. So they're the ones who are constantly working, right? They're working these long shifts. They're working. They are actually trying to get together a gym because they're working such long hours. They were trying to work on a gym when I was there. and I toured the facility, and I saw that they had, like, dumbbells maybe. It wasn't like a gym. It was like, something that's in your garage or something or your basement. And, they're trying to pull together some funding, from different organizations, from charitable organizations to try to build out a gym there. And, I'm thinking to myself, "Wow," so they go without, and these inmates, and I actually went and I saw the men's side of it. I didn't go inside the men's facility because I wasn't allowed, uh, because I'm a woman, right? I got to go inside the women's facility. But the men were, like, sitting there, they've got a full-blown workout facility. I think they had a basketball hoop and, like, pull-up bar, and, like, they're working out, and I'm like, "Wow." So they actually get to work out, and they have access to gym facilities, at the jail, and then the CEOs don't have access to a gym facility. So, yeah, there's a big danger when, you don't live in reality and when you play into these victim narratives. Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. I'm going to be back for the 8 o'clock hour in just a couple of minutes. We're going to be talking about Peter Ducey. He's trolling the Joe Biden. Oh gosh, I can't believe it. Joe Biden. He goes on this like little rant and he's like tries to say that the media is constantly printing negative stories about him, which just is not true. And Peter Ducey trolls him for saying that. I think it's pretty funny. So we're going to hit on that next. Plus, Veterans Corner, of course. It's Monday, 8 o'clock on the other side. I'm Kat Peterson, Cities 92.9. Good morning and happy Columbus Day. Yes. So today is the day where we remember Christopher Columbus, who sailed the ocean blue and, actually made something of the country. So I actually shared out a meme. You guys can go and check it out on Cities 92.9's Facebook page. There's this big landmass here, and then it's Christopher Columbus, and he's like, be a shame if someone interrupted all of the endless tribal warfare and created a functioning country. Yes, so that's exactly what Christopher Columbus did. So there was a lot of tribal warfare going on during that time. There were even like human sacrifices that were being made by these Aztecs, by the Mayans, by the Incas. They were very brutal people. And they actually um, they would take the hearts out of people and lift them up to the sky and cut out their hearts and lift them up to the sky and, pray for rain. Okay, and, say, and then there were people who were like, "Oh, wait a second, is that actually going to bring rain? Or are we sure about this?" And Christopher Columbus came by and he said, "The human sacrifices are gonna stop. I'm gonna actually, bring the invention of the wheel. I'm going to bring the invention of roads, and I'm going to, oh, I don't know, create a functioning country." And you know, he he conquered the nation. He was the winner. There's winners, losers, and I'm sorry if that offends people, but Christopher Columbus was a great dude. So you've got this big mass of land, okay? It's this huge mass of land. This guy, he sails across the ocean blue. That's Christopher Columbus. And, it'd be a shame if someone interrupted all of the tribal warfare that went on and, created a functioning country. But that's exactly what Christopher Columbus did. Christopher Columbus came, he stopped the human sacrifices because that's what the Mayans, the Incas, the Aztecs, what they would do. They would actually cut people open. I know, I hate to be gruesome. I hate to be, and they're like, Cat, come on, why? It's true. I'm just going to, people are very, very evil, and they've done very, very evil things in history. So in the 14th, 15th century, the Mayans, the Incans, the Aztecs, what they would do is cut people's hearts open and do human sacrifices, child sacrifices, and lift up the hearts to the gods or to whatever. And they would think that that would bring rain. And Christopher Columbus said, yeah, we're not going to do that. And he said, you know what? I'm going to build things like called roads, and I'm going to bring over, the invention of the wheel, and I'm going to bring over all of this wonderful functioning society, and I'm going to bring it over to you, and we're going to do it this way because that's, you know, the right way. There's the right way, there's the wrong way. There's winners and there's losers. And Indigenous Peoples Day, why are we celebrating the losers? These indigenous people quite literally would sacrifice people and would kill each other. There was just endless wars, tribal wars going on. And Christopher Columbus was a brave hero who set out and he found something, and he brought an end to the endless tribal wars and to the human sacrifices. So, yeah, happy Columbus Day. Go ahead and smash the like button if you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. On the line with me, we've got Jerry Vogler. It's Monday morning, 8:06, 8:07 is when we visit with Jerry Vogler for Veterans Corner. He's the McLean County Superintendent for the VA. Jerry Vogler, run me through Veterans Corner today.
Well, there's several things going on. The first thing on Veterans Corner, which we need to take note of, is that today is the official 248th birthday of the United States Navy. It originally was formed in October 13th, 1775, and officially became the United States Navy on March 27th, 1794. The original group that was formed in 1775 was called the Continental Navy, and there was a break between that time and 1794. There are about 334,000 active duty personnel, another 55,000 or so Naval Reserve personnel as of July of this year. There's also, believe it or not, 279,000 civilian employees, at least during that period of time. The two unofficial mottos of the United States Navy are Semper Fortis, which means always courageous, and non sibi sed patriae, not for self, but for country. So thank you all naval personnel out there, both past, present, and future. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. And one thing while we're talking about the Navy, one thing that I did want to talk about with you today, Jerry, and I wanted to see if you had some insights. So there was this USS Ford, obviously the U.S. military. They've ordered movement of the USS Gerald R. Ford carrier strike group to the Eastern Mediterranean. Hamas has, in the dead of night, surprise attack, terrorist attack on Israel. Uh, I think we're up to 700 plus Israelis dead, thousands captured. But I was really curious about this ship. Your thoughts there about this ship? Is there other periods in time where we've brought out the USS Ford? Now, this is the largest aircraft carrier, I think, and the largest warship that's ever been built. So, thoughts on that? Has this been drug out before the ship, or is it kind of odd that we're bringing out like the largest aircraft carrier and warship ever?
Well, the mission of the Navy is to recruit, train, equip, and organize to deliver combat-ready naval forces to win conflicts and wars while maintaining security and deterrence through sustained forward presence. And I think that last part of that quote is the important part. We did the same thing a couple of years ago. In fact, during the Trump administration at Taiwan, as the Chinese were starting to rattle swords over there. Our mere presence over there means that no, this is going to get out of hand here. We're here to make sure that it doesn't. The naval fortress is far diminished in size than it was even 10 years ago. While at the same time, the Chinese Navy, for instance, is the largest it's ever been. So we have to be very cautious of that. But the naval deterrence is simply to be there and be prepared to do what is necessary in order to carry out the commands of our country. And side comment to this whole thing, if there was a better position that we could take in the Middle East than we've been taking over the last several years, including billions of dollars just given back to Iran, we probably wouldn't be in this mess now with the Hamas shooting 1,000 missiles over into Israel. But the Navy is a deterrent by simply being there. And if we need to be more than a deterrent and an active combatant, they'll perform that duty also.
Interesting. Well, I just wanted your take on it. And I thought it was interesting, Hamas's statement. And I don't know if I'm sure there has been, and maybe you could speak to this, being that you served in the military as well, and you're a veteran yourself, Jerry. Hamas, they released this statement and they said, moving the American aircraft carrier does not scare us, and the Biden administration must realize the consequences of this step. So have we been talked to in such a way that Hamas has been talking to the Biden administration in years past, or is that kind of odd or an oddity?
It would seem to me as an outsider looking into this whole situation, Hamas just proved that it does defer them. It does affect them. Otherwise, they would have ignored it. And I think that's a key point, is that they're not ignoring this. They're trying to puff up their chest, beat on their chest a little bit and say, you're not scaring us. That tells me that, yeah, we scared the devil out of them. And hopefully that will cause them to reconsider any increase or enhancement of what they're doing over there.
Interesting. Yeah, I knew you'd have some interesting insight, Jerry. One thing that I did also want to talk about today was the maternity care. Listen up, it's starting October 1st. Veterans will have access to maternity care coordinators. So tell me a little bit about these coordinators, Jerry.
Well, this coordinator type of approach to veterans maternity care is not totally new. It's new as an established position that's available at the clinics and medical centers run by the VA. It expands the care for veterans having maternity situations to a 12 months postpartum expansion. Previously, it was about 8 weeks. which is kind of what happens in civilian. You go to the doctor, you have the child, and 8 weeks later, postpartum, you're pretty much done with your care for maternity. And with this coordinator, they now will help the veteran be able to navigate through the VA system and also outside of the VA. And we'll connect them with delivery, delivery care both before and after, and ensure access to the proper follow-up screenings and everything going on. Additionally, maternity care coordinators will provide the full range of maternity care services, including primary care, exams, tests, ultrasounds, newborn care, lactation support, and more. With the military now being made up of over 10% female, it's imperative that the VA adjust this from we treat all veterans pretty much the same, but we had some maternity care, now to actually looking at that group of veterans and saying they need something special because of their veteran status at the time of maternity.
Okay. And before we go, I do want to talk about the McLean County Museum and how they're going to be dedicating this new Civil War descriptive marker for the unmarked remnant of one of a once magnificent monument that memorialized the names of and legacy of 700 McLean County soldiers killed during the Civil War. So tell me about this marker and what exactly this marker is dedicating.
Okay. Actually, it's going to be a plaque on the ground in front of where the marker sits today.
Mm-hmm.
Originally, it sat back in 1888, I believe, when it was erected. There's a 49-foot tall, really beautiful monument in the middle of Franklin Park. By 1914, however, it had gotten because of wind and rain and the cold weather around here, and I think even maybe a lightning strike that hit it, it had become deteriorated to the point where they were going to remove it, they being the city founders and so forth, and remove it and destroy it because you couldn't read the names and so forth on it. However, at that time, there was a golf course on what today is Briarwood subdivision at the corner, sort of Dawes Place and Norbloom, just north of Emerson Street in Bloomington and Normal, right there on the edge. The developer of that golf course, when they bought it, was going to change it over into the subdivision. They thought that would be a good place to save that monument. So it now sits in the front yard of a private residence over there. There'll be American Legion's Honor Guard will provide military rights. There'll be a bagpiper. The staff of the McLean County Museum will be there to talk about the monument and so forth. So even though it's kind of close quarters over there, we hope the public can go over there and support this.
Wonderful. And Jerry, we are pushing up against a break. But one more time, the date there for when we can go out and look at the plaque and then the ceremony, the dedication ceremony.
Okay, well, the plaque is there right now. However, the ceremony will be next Tuesday, October 17th, and it will begin at 10:30. I would suggest that people get there by 10 or 10:15 because they may have to walk a half a block or so forth because of very limited parking on the side of the roads there. Wonderful. But look forward to a good crowd.
Yeah. Jerry, thanks so much for joining me here on Veterans Corner. Always a pleasure on Monday morning. You have a great rest of your day, and God bless, my friend.
Yeah, you too.
All right, folks, we're going to be back on the other side. Keep watching the stream on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. There's a few things I want to get to, specifically Peter Doocy trolling Joe Biden for his comments when he says, the media just treats me so badly, and it's just negative stories all the time about me. That's why the American people hate me. Nah, Joe, I think it's because you're a loser. Hey, good morning. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you're watching, go ahead, smash that like button. David Paul Blumenshine joining me in studio today. We're going to be talking a little bit about Peter Doocy and how he's trolling Joe Biden. I think it's pretty funny. And then we're going to talk about all morning I've really been talking about it. It's the news of the day, and it's a big deal. So we've been talking a lot about the pro-Hamas agitators who have been celebrating the terrorist attacks on Israel in front of the White House. There's been pro-Hamas supporters in San Francisco, New York, and a lot of what I've been talking about today has been that these BLM race arsonists in America are paying close attention to what's going on in Israel right now. So playing into victim narratives can start wars, and now we're starting to see it manifest in Israel the way that it has been, because we have even American leaders who have said that Palestine is oppressed, that they're occupied by Israel. That's just not true. Then I don't know the whole history. I've got to brush up on my history when it comes to this faction. I think Palestine itself, and even if you look at it geographically, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense that Palestine is a country, I guess. But geographically, it doesn't even look like it should be its own country. It looks like it's a part of Israel, and it's a faction that broke away from Israel because of their claimed oppression from Israel. And then it broke off even further, and there have been Hamas terrorist organization. I think there's another one there, and they're militants, and they control Palestine. Okay, they're these radical Islamic terrorists who control Palestine, and those are the people who are in charge of this country. So it's not like innocent. Maybe there's some innocent Palestinians, but most of it is all controlled by these radical terrorist groups. And we kind of saw that here in America. Okay, so it didn't like we got it under control, kind of. Chaz, I think that was in what was it in Oregon? Do you remember Chaz?
Yeah.
So Chaz broke off from that state, and it was like its own little city,
Yes.
and they were like,
The Summer of Love.
yeah, but they claimed that they were oppressed and that they had to break
Yes.
away from
Yeah.
government, and they were radical Antifa members, BLM activists
Yeah.
who were armed and were killing people, and this is similar to what's going on in Palestine and Israel. Um, we just haven't seen it progress to the point where they developed so much to where they've built missiles and can launch, what was it, 5,000 missiles into Israel. We just Chaz didn't get that progressed. Like they weren't able to progress that much.
Yeah. I saw a meme this morning of a Native American Indian with war paint on, and basically said that none of you're all illegal. And it was I tried to go back and find it on my social media page, but I'm thankful to the commenter that posted a comment on that meme from, I can't even remember the gentleman's name because I think we must be friends, but he just said, "Hey, listen, I was born here, and you can't be here illegally if there were no laws. And I served my country to defend the rights we have." And it gets back to law and order.
Mhm.
The left can't stand law and order. They want to have law and order to be a moving, target. And they determine what law and order is, not a constitution. Right? So I think that's a big part of it, is where people look to find out what provides them guidance.
Well, we're going to be back here, folks, in just a little bit. You're listening to Cities 92.9. Good morning. Hey, much for joining us here on the Morning Buzz. You guys can see us live in studio. That's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. My good friend David Paul Blumenshine right over there. Good morning, David. How are you?
Good morning, Kat. I'm
Morning.
well. I'm well. I've spent the weekend up north in Minnesota, and the
Ooh.
leaves are turning there. Obviously, I was not able to do my show, so you and I recorded our harvest special, and I did listen to it, Kat.
Yeah, that good. Yeah, the Harvest Special was incredible. And if you guys missed it, you can go check out the podcast that's on cities929.com. It's on the YouTube channel, the David Paul Blumenshine Show, or the DPB Show on YouTube. You can check it out. And you can even check it out on Cat Peterson 929. It broadcasted there live on Sunday from 1 to 3.
Can you listen to yourself,
Can
Kat?
I listen
Do
to
you
my-
listen to your shows?
Yeah, I try to go back and listen to my shows
It's
just
hard.
to, yeah.
My wife and I were talking about it. She goes, "Wow, you really don't listen to your shows." And I said, "No, it's hard, not because of the content, because I don't know. It's to hear your voice coming over the airways as you're sitting there. Yeah. And I'm just very critical.
Yeah, that's me too. If I were to sit and listen to my shows, I try to so I can try to get better. A lot of times, and y'all know this, is that I get on tangents. I just get on tangents and I move at 100 miles per hour. And once I get off, like this morning, I did not plan to talk about Sharon Chung and the McLean County Jail and how she literally spun this victim narrative, and how John Sandage, the sheriff at the time, was very worried. And he had a right to be worried because victim narratives, if they are left to run amok, can lead to wars or riots. In his case, he was worried about a riot. He was worried about the inmates getting unruly and trying to hurt his correctional officers in the jail because they were told that they were oppressed or that they were victims, and they're not, right? Trying to tell somebody they're a victim, and you push that, eventually they're going to think that they have to resist. And that's
Like
what we're kind of
firebomb
seeing.
the Capitol or Seattle, federal buildings,
Create Chaz.
the real insurrections.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
real insurrections.
Yeah. And it's just not true, right? We had actual oppression. We had 1960s, right? We had Jim Crow laws. We had sunset towns. We had slavery, the Civil War, right? We actually had oppression. And when you try to redefine oppression to not actually mean oppression, that's where things start to get really dangerous. Because when people are actually oppressed, that's that then people will start to turn. And
Well, if you start flying in the face of law and order, in Israel, they've tried to establish law and order for ever.
Mhm.
I was going to say for hundreds of years, but this goes back.
Well, and that's the same thing
in
with
these
Christopher
tribal
Columbus.
infighting. Yeah, and yeah, you were saying, go ahead.
Christopher Columbus, right? That's the same thing. That's why the left hates Christopher Columbus, because he actually came in and he stopped all of the tribal warfare that was going on for decades, and it was endless. I mean, they were sacrificing people. They were cutting people's chests open and pulling their hearts out and saying, "Hey, let's hope this brings rain." Okay,
I
like
thought
that.
that was only in the Indiana Jones movies. You were saying that was like real life?
Yes,
Oh, let's
that
see.
was real life.
Where did they get it from? Well, yeah, because it was going on.
Hmm. And Christopher Columbus said, yeah,
Well,
we're
yeah,
not going to do this anymore."
Yeah, even though they accused Christopher Columbus, well, it's the typical. It's funny because the gaslighting's never stopped. That's the progressive movement.
Hmm.
And you look at most of the problems in the world today, they're caused by progressives, and those progressives tend to be Democrats.
Yes.
That's just or communist, Marxist.
Speaking about gaslighting, I did
Go
want to hit this today. So Joe Biden, he got out there and he was asked why so many Americans just refuse to believe that he's doing an awesome job. And Joe Biden, straight face, David, he just says, "Well, it's because the media negatively reports on me all of the time." So Peter Doocy wasn't having it, and he actually trolls Joe Biden here, and I think it's pretty funny. So I'm going to share this with you, and then I do want to get to Hillary Clinton because there's a part of this piece where Hillary Clinton, she says MAGA Republicans, MAGA Trump supporters, they need to be deprogrammed, and everybody's covering that. But there's this whole other part of Hillary
Yes.
Clinton
Yes.
and that interview that people aren't covering. But we'll do it here on the Buzz. But first, let's get into Peter Doocy. I think that this is a pretty funny clip where he trolls Joe Biden for that comment. Like always, you guys can see the clip on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Let's take a listen.
It's clear that a border wall is not the answer. That remains our position, and our position has never wavered.
We see live pictures of a large-scale humanitarian crisis at the border every day for several years now. But President Biden believes that stories about ineffective policies during his presidency are just because he thinks reporters are disgruntled.
You all are not the happiest people in the world. You turn on the television, and there's not a whole lot about boy saves dog as he swims in the lake, to say, it's about, somebody pushed the dog in the lake. I mean, I get it.
That's a great line. We are not going to see the president again today. He has the president of Germany coming to drop by the Oval Office, but for some reason, they don't want cameras in there for that. Sandra?
I am confuzzled.
And you know what? Next hour, we are going to have more about the somebody pushing the dog into the lake. So stay tuned.
John and I need some clarity on that. All right.
So Peter Doocy actually trolling him. So at the very end there, I don't know if you picked up on it, David, but Peter Doocy goes, next hour, we're going to have more on somebody pushing the dog into the lake. So stay tuned.
Because the dog wouldn't jump into the lake. Or what we could really cover, Joe, is the fact that you have a German Shepherd at the White House that has bitten, a dozen people?
Yeah. And there's
videos
of him kicking the dog. Have you seen that video of him kicking Commander? It's insane. To be fair, the dog was running around like crazy, and he wasn't just curb stomping the dog or really actively trying to kick him, but he kicks him. And yeah, I mean, it's no shock, right? He doesn't give discipline to his son. Clearly, his son is a coke-riddled maniac. And it shouldn't shock you that his dog acts this way. And it's not just that dog. It's been multiple dogs. He's had Major Commander in the White House, and the only reason why they got the dogs was to humanize them. I don't know why they would choose an aggressive breed who needs discipline and direction to humanize him.
Joe Biden's been impressed by the media.
Yes, Joe Biden has been oppressed by the media.
He's a victim.
He's a victim. Again, the victim narrative.
Here we go.
They love that victim narrative.
Oh, boy.
We have to take a quick break, but when we come back, we are going to cover Hillary Clinton, Hillary. There's more to that story.
Oh, yeah.
There's more to that where she goes on.
Oh, yeah.
Past saying that Trump supporters need to be deprogrammed. You won't believe it. Next, David Paul and I will break that down for you. Catch us on the live stream, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. All right, David. So run me through the rest of what Hillary Clinton had to say there. Oh, here we go.
I'm going to go use the restroom real quick.
Okay. So, here we go.
You want me to run you? Oh, you were going live on Facebook.
Oh, no, I got this.
Okay.
Hillary Clinton's recent interview on CNN is making waves, but not for the reasons you might expect. While many are rightly upset about her call to deprogram Trump supporters, there's a far more sinister undercurrent that's largely being overlooked. So Hillary Clinton actually called for the re-education. At some point, there needs to be formal deprogramming of the cult members, but she goes on and she gives this bone-chilling talk. So I'm going to be talking about that here in just a little bit. I've actually going to pull up the clip. You're listening to The Morning Buzz, Cities 92.9. I'm actually going to try to work on my camera here. So stay tuned. I like this text message. He goes, I was door knocking, or I had a door knocker canvassing my neighborhood for Sharon Chung. So it's election season, folks. Be prepared to have some door canvassers out there for Sharon Chung, looking for signatures. He didn't stop by my house, but I stopped him. I was on my porch and I stopped him and I asked him, who was that for? And he said it was for her. And I told him, no way, I'm not signing that. I'm not going to give her signatures. And he asked why. And I told him why. That the town of Normal interfered with getting more people on that ballot. And they had the help of a big Chicago lawyer. And his response, the door knocker's response, was that, yeah, well, that was all the town of Normal. That wasn't Sharon Chung. That's so funny because she actually has a bill out there.
Sharon didn't push the dog into the lake.
No, it's a victim name. Oh, I didn't do that. And then she didn't push the dog into the lake. No, she, this is a victim narrative. No, it wasn't me. It was the town of Normal. They were the big bad guys who did that. No, that's false. Sharon Chung, she's got a bill out there. Forget the number of the bill, but what it does, it takes the town of Normal and it isolates it from the rest of the state. And it says that Normal doesn't have to follow a state statute in where they have to elect certain people when, incorporated towns get over a certain population. You have to elect a town clerk, a town supervisor, things like that. And her bill, which she introduced, right, it has her name on it, and she's the one who sponsored that legislation. She brought it forward and it was voted on. So yes, it was Sharon Chung. She is the one behind all of that. So
And Kat, you would give Sharon Chung an opportunity to defend her positions on radio here, but it's so easy for these folks like Joe Biden to blame the media for picking on him, or Sharon Chung for calling us insurrection radio. FYI, Sharon, it's pretty sad when you don't even know what an insurrection is, because nobody's been charged with insurrection, but yet you call our station Insurrection Radio. However, you can redeem yourself by coming on the Morning Buzz and with Kat Peterson and defend yourself.
Yeah,
Really lay out your arguments. I want to hear Sharon Chung. Have you heard anything from this person who represents us?
When I questioned her, and I gave her really just a very bland, and it was very respectful question on her social media page when she was running for state representative. And I just questioned her. I said, are you for or against the repealing of parental notification? And are you for that? Is that extremist? It was some sort of post about, abortion rights or whatever. And I just was kind of curious if she was for the repealing. I think there's only 6 or 7 states in the country that have it to where if you're 12 years old, you can go seek an abortion at an abortion clinic. There's only 6 or 7 states. So that, by definition, is not the norm. Okay. Illinois is very extreme in that a 12-year-old girl can go to an abortion clinic today and her parents not be notified that she's having baby broken up inside of her and ripped from her uterus. Okay. So that's you don't have to inform parents in the state of Illinois. So that's what I asked her, and she blocked me. She proceeded to block me on her page. I tried to message and tried to ask her, hey, are you for or against parental notification? And they blocked me completely. So she is not very trained. And that was the case
Dissenting
with
opinions will not be heard here.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't even an opinion. I just asked her if she was for or against it. I just wanted to know her opinion.
But it's a question. They do not like dissenting questions.
Yes.
They're not going to answer that, so therefore she would have to give an answer that could put her at odds with most of her, or a good portion of her constituents.
Yeah, because most people would say, hey, that's wrong.
Yeah.
We should probably inform the parents that's going on. Before we took the break, we were talking a little bit about Hillary Clinton and how it's so much more than just, Hillary Clinton coming out and saying these MAGA supporters, these MAGA Republicans, they need to be deprogrammed. It's so much more than that. So here's the clip that everybody's covering. And then I'm going to ask David, hey, what more is there to this story? Because there's more, and they're not covering the entire interview. And it's actually much worse than her even saying this. So let's take a listen to what Hillary Clinton said about deprogramming Trump supporters, MAGA
Mega extremists.
Mega extremists
Yes.
is what she said. Here we go.
Because at some point, maybe there needs to be a formal deprogramming of the cult members, but something needs to happen. And how, because at some point, maybe there needs to be a formal deprogramming of the cult members, but something needs to happen. And how,
so she said that. And David, I'm just kind of curious. There's more to this interview than just that.
Oh, yeah.
What?
There is more to this interview. Well, first of all, Kat, she goes as far as saying, this is, quote, Hillary Clinton in this interview. Besides, I still want to know, who are these cult members? Is it just anyone, 75 million people who voted for? Because that's a big extinguishing of people.
Mm-hmm.
Deprogramming. Or
are they going to build facilities? Like, how are they going to do it?
Here's the quote. At this point, I think, sadly, he, Trump, will still be the nominee, and we have to defeat him, and we have to defeat those who are the election deniers. So now not only are we cult members, but we're election deniers. Not that Hillary was an election denier, even though she called him an illegitimate president, 100,000.
And they sicked their acolytes, their left-wing nuts, on the electors.
Yeah.
So the people who were actually in charge of solidifying that election and voting in the Electoral College, she actually had leftist, the Clinton campaign.
Well, and that's what the rest of this quote says. It said that, we definitely need to defeat those who are the election deniers, as we did in 2020 and 2022. They defeated the election deniers in 2020 and 2022, Clinton said. And we have to just be smarter about how we are trying to empower the right people inside the Republican Party. Kat, bottom line is, she goes on to basically say the quiet part out loud. The Uniparty wants to go back to the dog and pony show, where they have the Republican Party on a tight leash. They want to make sure that Nancy Pelosi and Steny Hoyer, or whatever his name is, have their offices, that they don't have to give up. But bottom line is, we also know that the Republican Party is feckless at best when it comes to leadership. Mitch McConnell, we had the Paul Ryan days. We still try to roll out the Pence, and all of the establishment, the Bushites. And this is what people realize is Hillary, we know that you, the elitists, the globalists, have controlled the Republican Party for a very long time.
Well, and there was a phrase back in, I think it was 1966, the Cultural Revolution, Mao. Okay, so she's talking about saving democracy, and they always do this. They're like, oh, it's for saving democracy. Saving democracy, we have to stop these election deniers, things like that. And this is just the same old tired playbook, because it's the only playbook they've got.
Yeah.
Back in 1966, I can't remember what exactly their phrase was, but I think it was save the revolution.
Yeah.
So instead of save democracy, it was save the revolution. And the people who were opposed and the people who were political dissenters, they actually had little note cards around their it was like a sign, and they would be
placard.
Yeah, they would have that sign hung, and they would say revolution extremist or something like that. It was like a placard that they were forced to wear by Mao. Mao Zedong.
Basically, they accuse you of doing what they are doing, which is the entire theme of gaslighting. Kat, just real quick, texter says this to us. How about that?
Oh, hey, great talk show today. Long live Bloom and Kat. I love it. I love that.
Their new branding for the Morning Buzz show.
Dave and Kat. Yes, David Paul Bloom and Shine.
Bloom and Kat.
Bloom and Kat. I like it. Very nice.
Kat Bloom.
Kat Bloom. Cat Bloom. Bloom and Shine right over there. Sunday 1 to 3, you can hear them. And don't miss we actually walk through a lot of the 11 plans that the global elites have to take away your freedoms.
Not even plans anymore. They're truly ongoing. This is where we're at. And we see it on a world stage too. This isn't new. A lot of people are just continuing to go about their days, just living life.
Well, and there's two types of people. So when there are revolutions, or when there's political dissent like this, and when there's police states, which I'm very excited to go see that movie. But when
Finish,
there's
Susan.
police states, there's two types of people that arise from this sort of authoritarian regime. There's people who really want to conform. They're the conformity. They'll get out. They won't be dissenters. They will just conform, conform, conform. And then there's those people who actually enjoy, and they're called the informants. They enjoy being an informant. We kind of already have seen this with the masking, right? The flight attendants who really like got excited about being tyrannical and forcing you to wear a mask. Okay, there we've already kind of seen it. There where the people would conform to the
Yes.
mask wearing, and then they would just conform to what the regime wants you to do.
Yes.
But then there's those who actually become little tyrants themselves, and they really enjoy getting people to bend the knee.
Telling other people to
Mhm.
conform.
Yeah, so there's two types of people that come from uh, police states, tyranny or tyranny, uh, when this kind of stuff happens. So yeah, Hillary Clinton's interview very disturbing. On the other side, we're going to be back. We're going to talk a little bit about Hamas, and I've got some updates for you on death tolls, on our presence there in the Mediterranean Sea. So we're going to be back talking a little bit about that next. Hey, folks, if you're watching, go ahead and smash the like button. We're going to get to some of your comments here. One comment that I did want to get to was the quoting of Genesis here by Sherry. Sherry Bertram, she says, God says, in Genesis chapter 12, verse 3, that he will bless the world through Israel. He also promises that Israel will be used to usher in the coming kingdom. Yes. So, as a Christian, if you are a Christian, and if you're not, it is what it is. It's, I'm sorry. I pray for your soul. In no other religion, I love this too. Muhammad, other religious figures, oh gosh, Buddha,
Yes.
they all like refused to say that their religion was the truth, the way, and the life. Right? When Jesus died, he said, "I am the truth, the way, and the life, and the only way to the Father is through me." And he definitively said that. I think Muhammad said that he didn't know what the purpose of life was. I think when Buddha died, he said something in a similar effect. But yeah, so Jesus is the only religious figure who is very clear on what the truth was from the very beginning to the end of his
Yeah.
life. He said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life."
The Father is in me, and I am in Him.
Mhm.
You know, there's no mincing words.
Yeah.
He's very clear, and I understand that a lot of the folks out there that struggle with that, because it is a struggle. It's a challenge. You know, I don't condemn anybody for not believing in Christianity. It's not my position to condemn you. It's my position to love you and to encourage you to seek.
Well, the time is now.
That's right.
The time is
Seek
now.
the truth. To seek God while He may be found.
Yes. Yes. Seek
Because if not,
and you shall find.
Yes.
Seek and you shall find.
That's right.
But
the door is you got to open the door.
yeah, in church yesterday, our pastor, he was talking a lot about how Israel is God's country. I mean, and several times there's several
The chosen people. Yeah.
Yeah, the chosen people. How
the Israelites are the chosen people. And and that opens up a whole theological discussion, Kat, that you and I could spend all day in studio, but we'd have to definitely, like the Pawn Stars, we'd have to call in experts.
We'd have to call in the experts.
People that can really break down what is happening, because what is happening is there's nothing new under the sun. I did a show like that. Let's see, 2 weeks ago, two weeks ago, where I talked about that. There is nothing new under the sun. This is stuff that's gone on. Don't get upset by the culture. Focus on Jesus.
Focus on Jesus. Yeah, I love that. Hey, if you're watching right now, go ahead and smash the like button. Share this out with your friends. And I mean, like I said, playing into this victim narrative, I went through step by step which congresswomen, I call them the squad, AOC, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, Cory Bush. I went through all of their statements, and they all pretty much echoed the same thing: was that the Palestinian people are oppressed, they're occupied, things like that. And this is a very dangerous, what I call victim narrative. And it's encouraging people in Hamas to launch missiles into Israel because they think that they're justified in doing it because they're so-called oppressed. But they're not actually. Okay, this is similar to what BLM did, Antifa did in Chaz. They broke off from, I think it was the state of Oregon. I'm pretty sure.
Seattle.
Seattle.
Was it? They broke off from Oregon. It
Or
took place
it was in
Seattle.
Seattle.
Yeah, it was
And
in
it was
downtown
like,
Seattle.
yeah, downtown Seattle, and they broke off and they created
The
their own
Summer of Love.
little faction.
Yeah, Chaz.
And I mean, that's similar to
An
what.
autonomous zone.
Yes.
Whatever that meant. Because remember, that was big in the news for a while. Like everything, it's maybe 15 minutes at best. Hey, real quick about the squad. Can we add Brandon to that? Can he be a good squad member? Brandon, I don't know what a fire alarm is, even though I was a high school principal.
Oh, no, actually, he did.
He's part of the
Jamal
squad?
Bowman. Yeah, so he came out with another statement as well that echoed the same things. I just didn't pull his statement this morning because I was like, oh, Jamal. But no, he actually, along with
Why do I call him Brandon? Oh, I know. Let's go, Brandon.
Yeah, let's go, Brandon. Pull the fire alarm.
Or the fire alarm, Brandon.
Jamal Bowman. I love it. We need to go as the fire alarm. I want to go as the fire
Jamal,
alarm.
how did I get that wrong? I just called him Brandon because anybody that comes out of that party, I think I'm just going to call Brandon.
Brandon.
Let's just name them all. They'll all be autonomous people.
Brandon. Well, they honestly are. Like, I just don't understand. These are non-play. I call them NPCs. So they're non-player characters. And I feel like these people aren't real. They just go have their, when you're playing a video game.
They're avatars.
Yeah, it's like they have these rehearsed lines over and over and over again. And you can kind of see it when I was pulling the statements today from Cory Bush, Ilhan, AOC. They all said the same thing without like saying the exact same thing. And I'm like, are these people even real? They're like non-player characters and they're just out there saying the same rehearsed lines. When you play video games, you go to the guy, the merchant, to kind of try to get gold or something. I'm a big fan of Fable. I like Fable. And you go to the guy, the merchant, and then the merchant has like the same 3 lines that he says, and I'm just like, man, these people are really non-player characters. So yeah, Brandon.
I'm gonna have to look that game up, Kat. I've played Catan. Is that kind of like what you're talking about?
Yeah. It's just the virtual version. Like it's a virtual video game. It's like Catan. But
hold on, Kat. That's a little more aggressive than I can take.
We've got to wrap up the show. Wow. Well, we're signing off. Can't believe it. It's already time. 8:58 a.m. Thank you to David Paul Blumenshine for coming in studio today. This has been the Morning Buzz. We'll do it again tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. And we're praying for Israel.
Pray for Israel.
Pray for Israel. Pray that this just stops and
pray for peace around the world. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me, Kat.
Let there be peace on earth. You guys have a great rest of your day, and bye-bye. I love you.